Welcome to the Kingdom of Pod. This is Boise State's win over Wyoming edition, brought to you by Bet Online. Jeff Caves here in Flower Mound, Texas. That was a memorable game for a lot of us, and I hope that we can all still appreciate those kinds of moments and remember them for years to come, because I think that they are fewer and far between for some schools, not necessarily for Boise State fans, but I thought it was a very significant win, and there were many moments that the Bowens catch could have been memorable. The Skinner interceptions, the Helani fumble, unfortunately, I think will be almost as memorable as anything, given the way things work now, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there. It's not to take away from anything. There was a lot made of the weather before this football game, and I think that's normal. Anytime a game is in November in Laramie, it gives you something to talk about. And believe me, there is something to be said for who's doing the talking and where they're finding their information and how much effort and time they're willing to give it. So I don't blame anybody for doing it. That's just the way it is. I thought the bigger story was the number of defensive players Boise State was missing. It's a miracle that they can get by with this kind of depth. The college football landscape now will become, I think, one of a lack of depth through most teams. Players in today's climate without a penalty to transfer won't sit around if they're not playing. They will go somewhere where they can find to play. They won't sit. And so increasingly, like Wyoming was playing young defensive tackles. Boise State was playing. I was looking at some of these names, and we should, Simpson, Hogan's, Hunter, Callahan. There's a lot more guys I'm not even mentioning. You looked at the depth chart and who was playing the first 4 games of the year versus the last 4, and there's different names. And all across the country, schools are in the same situation. So that's the new normal of, I think, where we're headed for college football. So still credit to Boise State for having those kinds of kids in the wings that could really stand up and play as well as some of the kids before them. I think there was some great moments to get a win on the road from behind with a freshman quarterback and those kinds of defensive numbers. And then what struck me is that, Boise State had to win this game several times, and you could argue they almost lost it, but the offense had to win it one time with that throw to Bowens. The defense had to win it twice. Both those Skinner interceptions won those football games for this football team. I don't think JL himself won this football game, but he had a lot to do with it. I mean, if he knocks down that ball, that in the second interception, that doesn't mean Wyoming still can't get a field goal with the kind of field goal kicker they had and go into overtime, and then who knows what happens. But I think that is critical, that they had to win the game 3 times, once on offense and twice on defense. That doesn't always happen. I like to go back and look at what I thought before the game and what actually happened and do some contrasting. I didn't have much respect yet, really, for the Wyoming quarterback, and I think we all saw that was warranted. Jaden Clemens, 3 of 16, 3 interceptions, 30 yards. Really, Wyoming should have been beat a lot worse than that. You can't play football like that. This isn't Air Force that they were playing. This is Wyoming, who should be more balanced than that, and they want to be more balanced than that, but that's the best that they had. The entire conference is down at quarterback. And yes, I do think that the lack of great quarterback play by Wyoming had a lot to do with Boise State being able to win this game. I think that has a lot to do with the conference being down. 8 out of 12 teams in this conference this year are playing with quarterbacks that are different than their starters. Injuries, or look at Boise State firing an offensive coordinator and their star quarterback of 4 years quits the team. It's the last time that happened. Okay. This is a very unusual set of circumstances and a very unusual season for the entire conference at quarterback. I did look at it statistically speaking too. And there's been 132 games played by Mountain West Conference teams, only 141 passing touchdowns. I had barely 1 per game. And that's unusual, to say the least. So this has been a down year, but it doesn't take away from what I think Boise State has accomplished. I mean, if you look at it and you say, wow, you're going to fire your offensive coordinator during the season, which I've never seen happen before at Boise State, and your star 4-year starting quarterback is going to quit, and you're going to have a redshirt freshman come in who hasn't played much and has a very awkward throwing motion, and you're still going to get to the Mountain West Championship game, and you're going to lose to UTEP. There's not a lot of people that were betting on that to happen. So I think the credit should go to, probably starts with Dickey. And did Dickey go down the hallway and start looking over Andy's shoulder, start wondering if he was the guy, start wondering about what he was doing and how he was doing it? Or did he just hold firm and know that everything was in good hands? It sounds like more of the latter. Then it goes to Andy and how he handled it. He fired the offensive coordinator. He knew a change had to be made. And I think he understood he had the opportunity with Dirk Cutter waiting in the wings to do something different. And he took the big move and not only lost his offensive coordinator, but he lost his quarterback and risked losing the team on some level. You never know how players will react to that. And then after Avalos, credit goes to that staff and the entire department for standing by these guys as they fought through all of the challenges that they've had this season and the lows, and coming back to now getting into a Mountain West Championship game. I think it's a huge credit to the entire program to be in this situation when there wasn't many people that were looking for it. Wyoming, I thought, was going to kick a lot more field goals. They only kicked one. I blew it. But they couldn't get in the Boise State red zone. Yeah, they had the big run, but they just couldn't move the football. They had 8 first downs the whole game. That was a terrible offensive effort for the most part. I know they ran the ball well, but they did not do much in the Boise State red zone. I was thinking about, what's the biggest memory of what was, probably the biggest win for Andy Avalos at Boise State. Getting into a championship game is no small feat. But Wyoming blowing it on the interceptions to Skinner. What are we going to remember in 10 years? Just go. What are you going to remember? I mean, go back 6 years. Okay. For the majority of us, what we remember most 6 years ago when Wyoming beat Boise State in Laramie was the safety dance. That's what was promoted. Boise State got a safety. Brett Rippon was tackled. They did that safety dance, and that's what people remember. That's the signature moment. Will the Helani fumble be the signature moment? Will the second interception be the signature moment? I think most of us are going to, unfortunately, remember Helani's fumble and that they still got the interception and won the game. And that's human nature. That's human nature. And I wish it was different sometimes, but I don't think it is. I think that's what we will remember. But I want to give some credit to JL Skinner, because it's one thing to say that it was a bad throw and he kind of threw the first interception at him. It's another for Skinner to put himself in that situation and then catch the damn football. And not only did he catch it the first time, he caught it the second time. If he drops that second interception and Wyoming gets a chance to kick a field goal, and they got a pretty solid field goal kicker, they go to overtime, all bets are off. So a lot of credit needs to be given to kids who put themselves in position to succeed and then ultimately do. So I think JL Skinner deserves all of that credit. Let's see, what else is there? Wyoming, I thought Wyoming was an interesting matchup for Boise State because Boise State's won most of their games playing with a lead. Wyoming had won like 5 games coming back by an average margin of 10 points down. So the first half, Wyoming won. They played with the lead in the first half. And then get to the second half, Boise State takes the lead in the third quarter, lose the lead, take the lead back in the fourth quarter, and almost lose the game. So all of that happened. So I think there's a lot of credit to be given to both sides for the fight, but really for Boise State to really seize this moment in enemy territory with horrific conditions, with a championship appearance on the line, and get it done. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for this. And I think another group that has been persecuted really by myself, by whoever else follows the team really close, is the offensive line. It's unbelievable the kind of holes they can open on offense, the protection they're giving Green for the most part. I do want to credit Wyoming's defensive game plan to really contain Taylon Green so he couldn't just roll out comfortably to his right or to his left and throw the ball with as much ease. I do think, though, that going into the game, I thought Boise State would throw the football to win it. And those 34 attempts were the most that Cutter has cut loose with Taylon Green. So that much did happen. They did throw the ball as much or more, really, not for as many yards, but they gave up, Wyoming gave up pretty much what they'd average, about 220 yards a game. So the offensive line deserves so much credit for this. The staff and Avalos. Boise State's in the championship game for the 5th time in the last 6 years. Had Boise State beat Oregon State, hey, they could be in the talk and in the running for the Group of 5 New Year's Day 6 bowl berth, because there's going to be a 2-loss team in there, unless I don't know how they're going to figure it out with Coastal Carolina. We'll see what happens with the CFP poll results come out. I think it's Tuesday again, but now you get a Utah State game. We'll be able to talk more about that as we get closer, but a lot of seniors should see some playing time. They still have a Mountain West Championship game. Let's hope it's got some good weather behind it. But in the meantime, that's one for the record books. I know everybody enjoyed it, and I will get ready and talk to you about this Utah State matchup.